DC. Which one is it? The DC free Wi-Fi DC Public Library, Shepherd Park.
Oh, snap! It came on for me too.
Well, I might have to log in too.
Oh, them little boys came all the way over here, and she told them that it wasn't working.
Oh, the one that was skateboarding.
Yeah.
Oh.
I feel like throwing chairs everywhere. You're not recording, are
Yes,
you?
it's recording, ma'am.
Thanks, huh?
I told you, we live in effect. Let's
You
go.
gonna edit that part out?
Yes, ma'am, I'll try to.
Alright.
Back in the school board again.
Alright. Let's do the prayer.
Yes, ma'am.
Alright, let me get my bearings. So, that's the east.
Georgia Avenue.
Yeah, so this is the east. Alright. Allah, Father of the universe.
Allah, Father of the universe.
The Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth. Peace.
Peace. Freedom.
And justice.
And justice.
Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide.
My God.
And my salvation.
And my salvation.
Through night.
By
night.
By night.
And by day.
And by day.
Through his holy prophet.
Through his holy prophet.
Noble Drew Ali.
Islam. All right.
Islam Moors. So we'll read the I don't know if y'all have a copy, but these are the divine warnings by the prophet Noble Drew Ali. This is prophet warns all Muslims. Governors ordered to read proclamation at each meeting, January 15th, 1929. I hereby inform all members that they must end all radical agitating speeches while at work or in the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members who hold malicious feelings toward the temple or the prophet, or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement, will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet Noble Drew Ali, and if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet, therefore, is sending out a divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways by order of the prophet Noble Drew Ali. There are a couple other warnings that I encourage you all to look at on your own time, not necessarily to be read at each meeting. The divine warning by the prophet for the nations, that's pretty long, so I won't read it here, but again, these come directly from the prophet, so these are the words and that you all and we all need to heed, and they should be evident in our deeds. Also, when we read the warning, it states all true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. When they say must obey the law, what is the prophet referring to? Excuse me, you didn't hear me?
No, ma'am.
Oh, I said when in the warning it states all true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. What is the law to which the prophet is referring?
Well, the laws that I've been reading is I guess ties back to principles, and the principles are love, peace, love, freedom, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice is the laws that I have gotten from the prophet, amongst other, how would we say, du jour law that I read. Now,
Anything else to be contributed?
What about the bylaws of the temple? That's like our constitution, right? So that constitution.
right, right.
Several things.
So
For us personally, and then you have the national constitution, right?
which was established, well, I believe you're referring to the Constitution for the United States, the Constitution for the United States of America.
Right.
And that was put in place, founded by us Moors, but put in place for Europeans.
Right.
So it's a reflection of the universal laws, and which are a reflection and addition of the divine constitution bylaws. So it's all one, but in particular the bylaws, the Moorish constitution, the principles dealing with the 7 hermetic principles, which are the laws of Tahuti, dealing with in religion, and I should put that in quotes because I'm speaking connotatively, but religion has a set of principles by which you are to live. And it's interesting, it says, all true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. So the other thing behind that is we know that there is a lineage of prophets, right? So those prophets give keys or laws by which we should live. And those laws are for our natural existence. So the purpose of religion is to bind you back to natural and universal law. And so true religions do that.
Pardon me. Can you give us a etymology, a short etymology on religion?
Yes.
Since you said
This is
bind
my
back.
intro because the Supreme coming up, but I will give the.
Just be brief. You don't have to be long. Just be brief.
So if you take the word religion, what do y'all think the prefix is?
Re.
What's the suffix?
Ion.
So what's the root?
Leg.
What other words do you know that have leg in it?
Ligament.
What's a ligament?
It's a body part that attaches. A body part that attaches, not necessarily the body part, but in etymology, body anatomy. A portion that bonds 2 bones or 2 bones together, 2 joints at a joint that binds. Yes. Thank you, ma'am. A binder.
So lig is to bind. What's this?
To do over or to line up. Do again, yes.
What's this?
Ion is
Well, like shun.
oh, okay, a shun, like action. Doing is a doing.
The act of.
Act. Okay.
Or the state of. So here we look at this one. This one. So what does religion mean etymologically?
Act of binding back
Binding back to what?
your family. Your tie, your blood. Can I say that? Your bloodline, lineage.
Your natural way of living.
Mm. Mm.
Questions?
That's
Beautiful. That's beautiful.
That's why they say that the masses don't get real religion.
Right. They get, you all write this down?
Yes, ma'am. Well, actually, I have the words.
So I can erase it?
Yes, yes, I have the words right here that you gave a couple of weeks back.
Oh, that was one of the words?
Yes, ma'am. As well as religion.
Well, we'll go on the other side.
Dogma.
Go ahead and look up dogma. Okay, so on the one hand, we have religion, which binds us back to our natural selves and our natural way of living. On the other hand, we have dogma, which we're looking up and we're getting ready to identify, and both etymologically and perhaps connotatively.
Okay, so it's a noun, and etymologically, it's traced from Latin. It's an opinion, belief. As it says, doki, to seem, think, and then it says D-E-K, and appendix. Connotatively, it says the first entry is a doctrine or a corpus of doctrine related to matters such as morality, faith, set forth in an authoritative manner by a religion. Also, a principle or statement of ideas, or a group of such principles or statements, especially when considered to be authoritative or accepted uncritically.
So, you know,
Just something in italics, a quote saying, much education consists in the instilling of unfounded dogmas in place of a spirit of inquiry.
May I read one that and this is coming from the Merriam-Webster's Dictionary, 1924. Dogma is a noun in the linear meaning 1, a tenet or code of tenets. 2, a doctrine or body of doctrines formally proclaimed by a church.
now isn't that interesting? Because hold your back page. No, whatever. Hold that for a second. Dogma. The first entry. A doctrine or corpus. You know what corpus means?
Well, corp is something dead or dead body.
Just body.
Just body.
Corp means body. Like
Okay.
a corporation,
Right,
corpus,
right.
your core.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's a doctrine or body of doctrines relating to matters such as morality and faith, set forth in an authoritative manner by a religion. So you see how in the connotative meaning, they're saying that dogma comes from religion. Now, why is that problematic?
Oh, right. Right.
Why is that an issue? How can I'm asking y'all. Huh?
Somebody there?
No. Hello? Hello? Oh, I'm not quite sure where that would be. This is a different class. It's okay.
That's really cool.
So, dogma coming from religion. If it etymologically meant an opinion,
Mm-hmm.
then it's a body of doctrine is based on morality and faith, but it's not even tying you back to or binding you back to natural law, then that's not even true. It's just like you can see fallacy.
Absolutely. Religion, if dogma is opinion, and religion is what binds you back to nature, nature is very clear, cut. It's not based on what you think.
Right.
It either is or is not.
Right.
Whereas dogma, and did you get a chance to look up the?
Yeah, I have. It says dogma to accept oldest form of DK becoming DK in sense of languages. Derivatives include dissent, paradox, disdain. When he's got suffix, stative, that eat. Descent from Latin, desire, to be fitting, to be acceptable. And it gives you words of similar bringing, like docile, doctor, doctrine, document, from Latin, docere, to teach, to cause, to accept.
It's very
And
interesting.
it's always, and I noticed they said it was from an authoritative standpoint, so it's something that they're forcing into you from the position of I'm the authority, so you have to take this as law in a sense.
Absolutely. So what stood out for me in what you read is that it has to be accepted. Whereas something that is from nature is already within you,
Right.
and you're drawing it out. You're not having, nobody's putting it in you and you accept it. It's
Right.
something that's somebody is innately saying, oh, I recognize that's already in you and I'm pulling it out. The other thing that stood out here is docile. So, I apologize.
No, you said docile. I have it.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready. Docile, adjective, from French docilis, to teach, easily taught, led, or managed.
So when people think of being docile, if you think of an animal that's docile, what would you think of? Right.
Right, or calm, or how would they say it? Like a cur dog. A cur dog would be like a skittish dog. So they would say he's docile.
Right. That goes in alignment with dogma. Obviously, they have the same Indo-European root, and they have a similar meaning, easy to accept. That's what they want our students to be. They want them to be docile. I get it, because I've been teaching. So let's see, I've been in the field of education for 9 years now, and for the past 4 years, I've been teaching on my own, and then I just started teaching in a public school again. So it's very jarring for me to go from kind of like having the ability to be and do what the child needs to having to require a student to be a particular way because the assessment of the teachers is not 100% on the students being educated.
Right, okay.
It's on how well did you get the student to follow directions, to accept what you've given them, what you've told them. Again, you want a docile student. Although my school recently did a workshop or did a class where they talked about to have a student engaged does not mean that they are the quiet one and just taking in everything you tell them. Engaged student could easily be the one that's up and talkative and doing a lot of things that you would think would be off-task behavior, but that's how they learn. And that's a big problem, is that schools are not set up for the type of learners that we have today. Okay, so that being said, I heard the word teach as well. So I have education on one side. What do you think I would put on this side? Indoctrinate. I will put training as well.
Oh, training's a good one. Yeah, training's a good one.
Indoctrinate automatically goes with dogma because it has the same root. You see the DOC
like doctrine and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
and dog here, DOG. So there was a transliteration where
At the G.
from
From
between
G
the
to
C
C.
and the G.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
I believe the DOG is Greek. When I heard you read docile, it was French. So therefore, dogma likely came before docile.
Okay.
Greek to Latin to French. Okay. To English. Another thing I would put up here is the word teach. It's funny because we talk about being a master teacher. Let's look up those two words.
Which one?
Teach and educate.
Teach as a verb. And coming from Middle English, teaching or teaching. Old English, taking. Cedeik.
What did it say before you what did it say connotatively?
Number one, to impart knowledge or skill to, like teaches children. Number two, to provide knowledge of, instruct in, like teaches from. Three, to condition to a certain action or frame of mind. Teaches young children to be self-reliant. Number four, to cause to learn by example or experience. Actually taught me a valuable lesson. To advocate or preach, like teach racial and religious tolerance. Number six, to carry on instruction on a regular basis, and taught high school for many years.
See how
To give instruction, especially as an occupation.
those are varying. Those are very
Yeah, it is
varying.
really varying in here too.
So what we want to focus on is DEIK. So you're gonna look that up. Okay, yes.
No, it was just varying because it's a lot. It's not different, but it's a lot.
Anything that's different from what you've already heard?
A 4 in this one, and it says first teach, verb taught, then it goes to teaching, and number 4 of that, to make to know the disagreeable consequences of an action, to impart the knowledge of. So yeah, that was the one that was 4.
Okay, and then you can look up educate while he's looking up the Indo-European group.
Alright, so the root is to show, pronounce solemnly, also in derivatives, referring to the directing of words or objects, oldest form, E-I-K, coming, they in centum languages. Derivatives include teach, told, addict, preach, judge, revenge, and discipline.
So
Very.
it's interesting. Preach and teach are both there. What it conveys to me is I put to show, to tell. You're putting something out that you want somebody else to take. Like if I impart something, if I impart a physical thing to you, that means you're taking it. There's no question. Okay, so it's think about that with information. I'm giving you information. That's it. That's what teaching is. All right. What's education? How does that differ? Or what is educate?
Educate is a verb, cated, cating, first lineal definition, to provide with schooling, 2, to develop and cultivate mentally and morally. Syn, S-Y-N, in bold letters. Train, discipline, school, instruct, in bold letters. Educator.
Alright, and then, so which of these do you think I'd have the biggest problem with? To provide with schooling, to cultivate
Mentally and morally.
And the Proto-Indo-European root says to lead.
Mm. Mm.
What's the prefix?
And educate.
Mm.
I wrote it, so you have to tell me.
Oh, I can see.
Yeah, I know, that's why I'm covering it.
In the word educate.
Yeah, what's the prefix? He just identified the root.
E.
What does that mean?
Really?
What other words has the prefix E?
Electric.
It does. Give me another one. Think about a tape, and a tape deck, a VCR.
Erase.
Think about a tape deck.
Eject.
Eject. What does that mean?
Pull out, right? Take out.
It's throw. If you press the eject button, the VCR will throw the tape out.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
What does E mean? Because eject is the root
E
that means
means
throw.
move.
So where are you throwing it? There's a difference between eject and project. By
Right.
project, I'm throwing it forward. If I eject, I'm throwing it. The tape recorder.
Throwing it down.
No. If I press eject, what does the VCR do?
Pushes it
Push.
away
Push.
from itself. Right.
What does the exit sign indicate?
Egress.
What is the exit sign?
Leaving out.
Out. E is out. So to educate is to lead them out. Now, there's two ways that I have seen this analyzed by etymologists. One is that you're leading somebody out of ignorance. The other is that you're leading innateness out of a person. You're pulling it out of them. That being said, which of these would I need to erase for education? Which of these is misleading, the most misleading?
On the education side.
Yeah.
It would be number
3, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which one is the strongest?
that would be cultivate.
Yep. What does it mean to cultivate? What word do you see in cultivate?
Cult.
Cult. And what word do you know that has cult in it?
Culture.
What's agriculture?
Ag would be the prefix, and ag is
It's agri.
agree. Okay, 1 second. Let me look up.
It means farm.
Farm.
The cultivating or the caring of
Oh,
and tending to a farm.
Right. Like farming, cultivating the land.
Cultivate your mind. Hence my business plug. The cultivated mind.
There it is. There it is.
Cultivate
Yes,
your
ma'am.
mind.
All right.
Grow
All
your-
right.
Take care of and bring expansion to your awareness, to your ability to just analyze, think, and know, which leads to doing. I was on the phone with a sister today, and I was discussing with her in the Circle 7, there's a chapter where they discuss the 3 levels of somewhat of 3 levels of understanding and existence to a certain degree, which would be the first level is your belief, like you believe something. That's having an opinion. That's the teaching level. Then the next level is faith, because when you go to school, if someone teaches you something and you accept it, and then you live your life by what you've accepted, you have to have faith in that thing. But what is the true test is if it comes to fruition. So that's the 3 levels, is belief, faith, and fruition. And fruition can only come from education, because when something comes to fruition, that's when you can truly say you know. And anything that really comes to fruition and anything that you truly know has already existed inside of you anyway. As opposed to this level teaching, it's really just, okay, I'm going to accept whatever I receive. It's not coming from out of me. So an example of that might be when your children have innate abilities and talents at a very young age, you pick up on these things and you cultivate that. So, you put them in whatever classes, you expose them to whatever people or workshops or situations. That's educating. If you just wait until they're like in kindergarten and you throw them in whatever the so-called state mandates you to throw them in, which would be the K through 12 system, then you're only going to be getting training from them. You will not be able to develop whatever comes innately from them. And therefore, they will not learn how to go within themselves to learn. Everything has to be based on what's outside of themselves. And so everything they'll be receiving from that point on will be opinion-based, because they don't analyze, they won't have the ability to analyze it themselves. Like, even when you read something, that doesn't mean you take it for face value. I mean, even in my reading classes, when I teach them, a main idea is nothing but a statement that an author makes. Anybody can make a statement. I could say that, I could make the statement that if you eat meat, then you will get sick more often than if you don't. That's just a statement that I made. That doesn't make it valid just because I stated it. What makes the statement valid?
If it comes to fruition, if you eat it and you get sick.
Absolutely. Prior to that, what would you say?
Well, before eating it, or
before the level of fruition.
Well, trying it for myself.
But if I'm reading something and somebody just says, so let's reverse it. And let's say if I said you should eat 1 whole chicken a day. Okay, are you just going to do that because you read that one sentence?
No, you should.
That one sentence, is that enough to make you try it? No. What in addition would you need?
Some kind of statement of why.
Supporting details.
Right.
Proof. And even the proof, you analyze it and you test the theory, right? And then you say, well, this can't be true because I've tested it, or I've done, whether it's my own test, personal, or I've done research, or I've conducted an experiment. But you don't take things at face value. You have to analyze it, right? You don't learn how to do that when you are taught in the school.
So that would be a thesis.
Well, a thesis is a statement, is similar to the main idea.
Okay.
It's just but you still have to prove a thesis.
Right. So it has to be proven.
The problem is, in schools, we're doing more of this side. So even after they graduate, for us to present this body of knowledge to them, if they're on that tip where they're like, I'm already like at the system, they're going to be open. But are they going to be able to use it? Or are they just going to be verbatimly saying what everybody else is saying? That's the generation of readers that we have nowadays. I mean, like, people my age and younger, I would say. I would say that around our age is like the last generation of, like, we got pretty decent education in school. Not great instruction, average.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying? Now, the level that is being taught on in most schools is there's no room for critical thinking. It's not that the teachers don't want to teach it. It's that the students that we get nowadays, the level that they're on, the way that they think, is very linear or very literal. You know, they take what is given to them.
Right.
So the point being is that that's what we're facing. I mean, if you look at the conscious community and all these people arguing over this person, that person, people aren't even analyzing.
Right.
They're really just kind of verbatimly going with what people tell them.
Mm-hmm.
Because we call ourselves and we call the people in our community master teachers.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's just perpetrating the fraud.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a teacher. This point going forward, don't call me a teacher. I'm an educator.
There you go.
Because my goal is to draw things out from people. My goal, so here's the second analysis, etymological analysis of education. One was to draw innate things out of people.
Mm-hmm.
The other is to draw people out of ignorance and darkness.
Mm-hmm.
Which again, because I told you something, does not mean you're no longer ignorant.
Right.
It's the ability to be able to think and come up with ideas on your own.
Right.
Based on, yes, you get some inputs because you're reading and you're talking with other people, but you take that and you analyze and then you synthesize.
Right.
Analyze is I break it down. Synthesize is I'm building an idea. Because in the word synthesize, I have thesis.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm coming up with one thesis now based on everything that I've broken down. Oh, I decided to take this part, that part, it's not true. I'm going to leave that behind. And now I'm building a new concept. And it's really not new because there's nothing new under the sun.
Right. And I also take this back to a great brother, a great educator. I'm not going to say teacher, great educator. Once said, man knows not by being told. So, I mean, you do have to investigate and for yourself and come up with these on your own. So, yes, I do concur.
What is it? Teach a man to paraphrase it.
Right, no, I said that yesterday. Yes.
Teach a man fish, you know that?
Right.
And you say it right.
Right.
You'll never be hungry.
Right.
It's not really teach, but and look, let me clarify. I don't think it's totally wrong to teach. I just think that we put more of our emphasis on teaching than educating.
Right.
Okay. When your children are singing their ABCs, there's a part of that is education in that if you go deep down on a cellular level, our ancestors' DNA is in our children, and our ancestors are the first ones to say these sounds and these letters and these words. So from that sense, you're educating.
Okay.
From the sense of you're trying to get them to hold it in their mind, you want to provide them with the information so that they will be able to recall it on demand with letters. That's not a bad thing.
Right.
The problem is when you say things like, everybody came here on slave ships, and that's the only narrative that is taught.
Just not true.
Which is not correct. So now you're providing misinformation. That's where the problem with teaching comes in. Because you're not showing them how to analyze it.
Right.
So that's one thing I kind of wanted to touch on today. See, I'm going.
Thank you. Thank you very much. But whenever you're ready, whenever you're ready.
Do you have any questions about this?
No.
Bottom part, because I really wanted to get back to the religion. So how would one bind themselves back to their nature? What would be considered religion? What is true religion? Never mind. I'm going to say something. Wrong audience.
Well, I know it has to do something with cosmogony, right? And that's the study of universal law. Or the cosmos. I haven't heard that one in a while. Haven't heard that one in a while. Um, uh, Also, ancestralism, going back to your forefathers and foremothers. Is that a word, ancestralism?
No.
Custom's good.
Is this a religion?
No. Well, no. Well, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Is this a religion?
No.
Is that a religion?
No. 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 No.
See, I'm looking at that. I'm looking at ancestral practices and customs. I'm looking beyond, like,
Mm-hmm.
something that was always anciently practiced. Certain people.
Why wouldn't Christianity be considered a religion? Just in your, let's say, connotatively, why is it not a religion?
This is a following of a person or a deity, right? It's a Christ. Some will look at Christ and say he was a man that they follow a man. And then they call it Christianity because they're following him. They're not truly following his principles and parables, as they call them.
So if a person was truly following the principles of Christianity, then would they be practicing a religion? Versus,
Yes, instead of following a man, an individual, calling him Christ and then following him, yes. Now they were just practicing his laws and principles he came with. Then they would be studying and practicing the religion because it's binding back to his ancestralism too, not just him. And it begins and ends with him.
what do you think?
Well, I have the understanding that the concept of Christ was directly connected with observing space and stars, right? So that's why, to a degree, I'm looking at it like, if you take it to that level of thought, then yeah, you are tying yourself back to what your ancestors originally did, but they just don't get that part of the information. Although it's sitting there in a way for them to see that.
Yeah.
Same thing with Islam.
Right, absolutely. So I would say the answer is twofold. On the one hand, if you're looking at Christianity from the sense of the Nicene Council, then no, it's not a religion.
Right.
It's a dogma.
Right.
If you're looking at it from the sense of Christianity, because see, Christianity, the term itself, the concept was not created for years after the Christ figure transition.
Right.
So that's a more political understanding of Christianity. Okay, but when you talk about religion, that's based on Yeshua or Jesus himself, and that's based on I would even say Christ-like figures, because there are plenty of, it's not just Yeshua, but there are at least 13 Christ-like figures throughout the world.
Right.
Okay, so we're really talking about Christ like Krishna,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Christos,
Mm-hmm.
Mithra, Sun, Zoroaster.
which really refers to an enlightenment,
Mm-hmm.
a sun. This is sun.
And that's why he was referred to as the Son.
Right.
Well, the reason why Yeshua is referred to as the sun is because when you transliterate it, yes, it means sun, light, right?
Okay. Right. That's
So
why he was. Why they always picture him, you know, not just being a European, but we know the true essence of that. But they picture him with a light around his head, or his head
It's his
engulfed in light, right,
Yeah.
or a halo.
Yep, absolutely. Which halo means sun,
Right,
like
right.
helium.
Like
Helios.
right,
Okay.
right.
The other part of this is, does Christianity, true Christianity, bind you back to your true self? Yes, because if this is the sun, this is a sun religion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right.
And so when we say things like Jesus died on the cross, that's an astrological concept.
Right, right.
And so our ancestors have always followed and tracked the movements of the sun, moon, and the stars.
Right, right.
Because it helped to indicate when to do certain things,
Mm-hmm.
when to plant, when to sow and harvest,
Mm-hmm.
when to, for women, when childbirth was going to take place, when their menses was going to come.
Mm-hmm.
The growth of plants are based on not just the sun but also the moon. The
Right,
tides
right.
based on the moon.
Right.
So when I say Christianity, it's twofold. It's really threefold. You got the level where the average day person comprehends it,
Mm-hmm.
and then you got a deeper level where you look at, we're talking esoterically.
Right, right.
So if you look at what we call the Essenes, this was a group of people who because every major religion has an esoteric and an exoteric.
Mm-hmm.
So the Essenes were the esoteric side. And so they weren't caught up with so much of the rules of the church, but the teachings of Yeshua.
Right.
And
right,
they
right.
were closer to the time that Yeshua was around in the flesh, as opposed to the Niceno Council.
Was they in the same territory where the Dead Sea Scrolls were like found?
Mediterranean
like
area,
right,
yes.
Right. Okay. I've studied them, so I know about the Essenes.
It's actually a Greek term.
Right.
Okay. So then what about Islam?
Well, I said no at first, but if we put it in a proper context, I would say yes.
What context would it have to be put in to be a religion?
Islamism, because Islam is, well, like you say again, a double fold, because some say Islam is I, self-law, and master. And then some says Islam is the teaching brought by Prophet Muhammad.
Who is the major figurehead of Islam?
Are we doing two? Are we doing two sides?
Not
again?
prophet, but I mean, who is the supreme? Allah.
Allah.
What is Allah?
Connotated or denotated?
Denotated.
Allah.
Allah and Allah. That's a I want to say Babylonian or Sumerian moon god.
So if Allah is the moon,
It's actually goddess. Allah is the moon goddess.
so Allah would be,
That's the male version of saying Allah. It's still moon.
but it's still moon.
What does that tell you about Islam?
That Christianity and Islam is really one and the same.
Except, what's the major difference?
that the study of the sun in Islam is the study of the moon.
Or the moon is what dictates,
Okay,
and the
okay.
sun is what dictates
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
the
ma'am.
patterns and the
Right.
studies
Right.
and the holidays and the events.
Or the holy days, which is still the sun
sun.
day. All right. Okay. Okay. Enlightening. Very enlightening.
Problem is, most of the masses get dogma when they're talking about Christianity and Islam.
Mm-hmm.
But when we talk about it, we need to be talking about it from understanding at least the dual perspective, the political versus the true religion.
Right.
The political is automatically tied to the dogma, whereas the true religion is what we need to be practicing. See, it's hard for me to say, oh, I'm this religion, I'm that religion, because I noticed that all religions are based off of nature. So if I just want to be a natural person, then I'm going to go.
You need to incorporate aspects of the thought.
Or at least that which resonates with me, because there's so much.
Right.
But then when I'm coming to it from a true sense, all of the other aspects that are true will easily connect to me. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so what do you think about Buddha?
Well, not much that I've heard. I know that it stems from voodoo. Well,
That's
voodoo.
what voodoo is a English people's version of saying Buddha.
Right. So it ties into voodoo.
Well, what is voodoo or voodoo? What are they doing?
Can that be looked up?
You can look it up, see what it. See. Well, now I guarantee they're gonna give you a very connotative answer in your dictionary, but you can look it up. I was gonna go downstairs and pull the. They have a dictionary on religions and faiths.
Oh wow!
And yeah.
So,
I'm gonna put.
I know they will invoke in
I'm gonna add this up here too. Santeria.
Which are both similar, you know what I'm saying?
Similar.
Well, Doom is they deal with a lot of practicing. I don't know for sure spells and connections with ancestors, protections and things like that. From a more spiritual, I would say a more seen from what I've seen, a little bit out of realm, I haven't dealt with much, but they deal with those people that dealing with more. They seem like they're more connected with nature altogether. Because if you sacrificing animals, and, you know what I'm saying, using blood for this or this aspect of an animal for that, you're dealing with more than just a dogma at that point.
It's a science. It's a similar science to astrology to me, and this is why. Because in Buddha and Santeria, you're just like in Hindu, the Hindu faith, and particularly the Hindu faith, you have a pantheon. I would say the Hindu faith and Greek mythology and Babylonian mythology, Sumerian, Celtic. All of these are similar in that they have they're polytheistic. Okay, they believe in more than one god.
Right.
But what is a god if we look that up? Yeah, you can tell me if you already know.
It was something that you call them on both.
Right.
Stuff you do.
Right. Not a person.
Right.
So if I say the god, if I say the god Tahuti, that means I'm invoking the energy. I'm invoking a particular energy when I say the word Tahuti. Okay. If I say the god Yeshua, I'm invoking a particular energy when I say Yeshua. I'm invoking a particular energy for each God name that I call, because vibration. So this is science, not just some backwater or folks type crap. No, this is science. Our ancestors were very They were connected, and that made them advance.
Right.
When you are religious, you are also a scientist, because science is just to know, to have knowledge. So similar to with Buddha, there are different gods and goddesses, but that's just the words that invoke a particular power or energy. So you have Elegba, you have Oya, you have Oshun, and we give reverence to these energies, because if we do not, they can wreak havoc in our lives too. You always calling on energies. You just want to do so in a proper, scientific, systematic manner.
Right.
You know, the concept is you whatever you think, you manifest. Well, if you have the science to pull forth what you need from what they call thin air, then that makes you a true religious master. Because now you have binded back to your ancestors, to things in nature, even if you can't see them. The vibrations are natural. You can't see them, but they're a part of nature. And we use that to manipulate. That's what Illuminati is. They're enlightened.
Right, right.
They were educated to be able to use the science and manipulate it for their benefit. It's time that we do the reverse. People talk about spells, and so I just wrote down Islam, Christianity, Buddha. So you have the Hebrew, which is really the Hebrew. You have Kabbalah and the Tree of Life, and you have the names of, you have Yahweh, and then you have 12 principles of Yahweh that are invoking powers. So like if I say Yahweh Ropeka, that means literally I'm invoking the power of healing. If I say Yahweh Elroy, it means I'm invoking the ability to see beyond the confusion. Confusion means fog. It's literally fog. So when you see beyond the fog, you're seeing clearly. Right. So if you're ever in a state where you're like, I don't know what's going on, that's a chant, Yahweh Elroy. That's what brings you to clarity. Okay? So also another one, Celtic. What people typically view that as is when you say witchcraft, they're really thinking of like Celtic practices. All of these have to do with roots, have to do with folk medicine. I mean, think about the concept of a witch and having a witch's brew in a pot, right? A cauldron.
Right.
She was taking leaves and herbs and healing people, and people thought she was doing something demonic.
Right.
No, she was using science. All of these are science. It's not spooky. It's not meant to be mystical. We have to get rid of this separation between religion and science, because dogma is that thing that creates the separation.
So that part of how sisters also get a bad name, you know, dealing with this how would I say, monarchy, these men, you know, going back to Joan of Arc, being burned at the stake for her thinking, or they thought she was a witch, or is that basically why a lot of these so-called men now try to shun women away from, you know, being upfront?
Well, that has more to do. That's a whole nother lecture.
I mean, with the folklore, you hit something major on there, because witches do get a bad name because the prophet was a witch doctor, not only a professor, but a witch doctor.
Look at Dr. Sebi.
Dr. Sebi, yes.
I mean, he's a scientist. He worked as an engineer. So the concepts that he's teaching us about the body, he's breaking it down chemically, and he's talking about it from an engineering point of view. And yet he's viewed as alternative, weird, spooky, witch doctor-ish, because he's talking about using herbs and water to heal yourself. seasons,
Right.
based on where planets, stars, and other astral bodies are located.
In fact, they have one.
Mhm.
Free.
But beyond all that, and they talk about Hinduism, which is really just the belief or the faith of the faith of the people in present day Hindustan.
Mm.
What I'll say about them
So
is
that's
that
the Brahmins and those. Oh, that's
Vishnu,
Right.
And that's India, right?
so-called India, Hindustan.
Right.
They too are similar to the Celtic in that there are different gods or godheads, figureheads, and they represent energy. They don't see it that way. They look at it just like all people in dogmatic mind states look at it. This is the religion, as far as these people, or these are gods that are actual bodies that exist in heaven, right?
Right.
But because I have the lens of etymology, I can analyze what each god represents. What energy is that God trying to draw forth? That's how I study religion, by studying language. Okay.
Right.
For example, Avatar. Remember the movie Avatar?
Right. Yeah.
That's a Sanskrit word that literally means bringing down, because an avatar is the physical representation of a God energy.
Okay. Right.
So when they said Yeshua came in the flesh, the energy of Yeshua already existed, because that represents a particular. It's like, let me give a better example. Mars, right? Mars is a word that means war. So they applied that word to a god that wasn't physical in the flesh, but it was a personified. They applied it to they personified Mars. So now you see images and statues of Mars, right?
Right.
Which they erect because they're trying to draw forth the energy of war and fighting.
Right.
Now, if a person was to come into the flesh and his name ended up being Mars, and he did all these great things in terms of military and war, and it taught people on the earth of it revolutionized how they approached military practices. That would be like an avatar.
Right.
Technically, we're all avatars.
Right. Come to think of it, yes.
But you have to know yourself enough to know what are you to do here as avatar. What energy do we embody when we take on this flesh? What's the purpose? What are we doing? That's what astrology does for you. It helps you to comprehend your purpose. So I'm going to read this to you. This is from the Circle 7 Quran. Alright, this is from chapter 35, Holy Instructions from the Prophet of Religion. And this is verse I apologize. I have things marked up in my actual Quran, so I'm using the phone version. Okay. If we lift up this is verse 18. If we lift up our eyes to the heaven, his glory shineth forth. If we cast them down on the earth, it is full of his goodness. The hills and the valleys rejoice and sing. Fields, rivers, and woods resound his praise. Nature, right? But he hath distinguished with peculiar favor. So when he says, but thee, he's talking about us. So the previous verse referred, I should have started from 17. The previous verse referred to all creatures. Verse 19 refers to persons, to people, because in the hierarchy of creation, we are the supreme, like the supreme animals on earth.
Right.
But thee, he hath imbued thee with reason to maintain thy dominion. He hath fitted thee with language to improve thy society. Etymology. So when we take away etymology, our society degenerates.
Right.
If language improves, the lack of language degenerates.
Right.
And he has exalted the mind with the powers of meditation.
Oh.
So how can we cultivate our minds and reach the height of our mind?
Meditation.
Through meditation. And in a moment I will talk about why that's important. Why the mind is important. To contemplate and adore his inimitable perfections. And in the law, this is 21. And in the laws he hath ordained as the rule of life, so kindly hath he united thy duty to thy nature, that obedience to his precepts is happiness to thyself. I'm going to read 21 one more time. Are you following?
I was trying to pull it up, but
So in laws he hath ordained as the rule of life, so kindly hath he united thy duty to thy nature, that obedience to his precepts is happiness to thyself. What does that mean?
I told is if you obey what is already ordained in you based on his laws, you'll even feel better. You'll be happy because you'll be doing what you know that you're supposed to do. So it'll make you feel like you're doing something versus going to work every day in that grind, that rat race, when you come back stressed out. Oh God, I got this, that, and the third one, versus doing what you already set forth to do. None of that matters.
And when it says, and in the laws he hath ordained as the rule of life, the laws would be astrological. So so we were born, we manifested on this earth realm at a time to where the rays, which contain the vibrations of various personality aspects, from having an intellect, how that intellect is exhibited, to how you look, to how you talk, your form of communication, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses. All of that it comes through the planetary bodies, because the planets emit an energy, and then they coalesce into this body, right? That's laws. That's universal principles and laws. And the Creator puts us in a place, so to speak, or we put ourselves in a place based on our thoughts and our actions. But it's only fair where we end up, because it's intended to teach us, to strengthen us. But if we just fall in alignment with that aspect of ourselves, then we won't be struggling. Case in point, how many times have we heard parents tell their children, oh, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a lawyer, and the child really wants to be like a dancer or something like that. Okay, the child, especially when they're children, they're coming from a place of innateness. This is what they want, especially if they're pure, like they haven't been indoctrinated. Then this is probably what their DNA is speaking to them and saying. But we're not allowing them or giving them the opportunity to be in alignment with universal laws. So we're doing a detriment to them in that sense. And even as adults, so now we're adults, and half the time adults don't even want to think about what they really want to do. They think about what they got to do. But what they got to do is what they want to do, and what they want to do is what Allah wants them to do. Allah and Yeshua. That's the sun and the moon.
Right, right.
So my takeaway, I guess, is that this is a divine and national movement. I think we put a lot of emphasis on nationality. I think we don't put enough emphasis on the divine aspect because we think it's too churchy and too like religious-y and spirituality, and people feel like, oh, I already know that, but I'm here to gain something I don't know. But you have to recognize that the two go hand in hand. So that I just encourage people to. So going back to that other piece about the mind with meditation. So have you ever heard the saying that meditation and prayer are similar?
Yes.
But that prayer is like when you're, that's like when you're putting something out in the ethers, and then meditation is how you receive the answer.
Back. Right.
So that lets you know that everything is the power of the mind.
Right.
So, you know, if you think it, then it comes to fruition. Now, it's not like an immediate thing.
Right.
Because there's a lot of dense atmosphere that prevents things from happening that quickly.
Right.
But the more you get in tune with that aspect of yourself, the divine, then the easier it is to manifest, good and bad. So you obviously have to be careful. So meditation is what cleanses your mind. The prophet said, keep your bodies clean with water, your body's pure with water, but your mind also needs to be cleansed through meditation. Water cleans the body, air cleanses the mind.
So that goes back to breathing.
Yeah, because that's what spirit really is, it's breath.
Right.
So when we're breathing, we're being our spiritual selves. And Taj, when we had a class, he said sincerity is not any of these. So all of this is important because these are tools. But when you're a sincere person, that's beyond all of this. Sincerity is you loving yourself and you striving to reach the truth and to put forth the truth and to live in the truth.
Right.
And if you're sincere, all of the tools that you're supposed to use will come to you. It may not be like pretty where it just is so systematic and it's simple and it's easy. I mean, you may go through a trial. But in that trial, and in the first chapter of the Circle 7, which is probably how I'll close out, and it's not actually a chapter. It's not the first chapter. It's no, I take it back. It is the first chapter. It's the only chapter that doesn't have verses. So the first chapter talks about the three planes of existence. You have the physical, you have the soul, and you have the spirit. The spirit is the highest. That's where everything's vibrating the fastest. That's where you are directly connected to the seven Elohim. You are the seven Elohim. You're part of that. The soul is the spirit realm. It's your spirit body slowed down, and that's when you take on the garb of emotions, the garb of senses. So you smell, what you feel, physically, and well, not physically because you're not in the flesh yet, but what you smell, what you taste. All of those are sensualities. That will be the soul level, and so I'll read this starting from the soul level. Oh, and then then the slower down vibrations will be the carnal, when you take on the garb of flesh. That's the carnal, okay? And you have to master each plane.
Right.
So man is the lord of the plane of manifest, of protoplasm, of mineral, of plant, of beast, but he gave up his birthrights just to gratify his lower self. So we understand giving up birthrights from a nationality sense, but what does that mean divinely?
Right.
So if you gave up your birthright, when you're speaking from that spirit from soul, you detached yourself from that connection to that which is really you in order to be in the flesh
Mm-hmm.
and enjoy or suffer from whatever you do with it.
Mm-hmm. So when we, biggest thing I can think of is food. You know how, you know the phrase foodie?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a new thing.
Right,
We didn't used
right.
to be, that to me is translated to greedy in that.
Right, right.
I mean, I'm just saying, when you,
I mean,
it's
that's
not
true.
bad to like what you eat and enjoy what you eat. It's when you become a slave to flesh.
Right, right.
Okay? That's giving up your birthright. Because have you ever heard of a breatharian?
A breatharian.
You know what a breatharian
I've
is?
never heard of that.
A breatharian? Wow. Wow.
When do we ever read about Yeshua eating anything? Your man was a breatharian. He won't eat him. Because he wasn't of the flesh. He wasn't.
Definitely giving other people stuff.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah, because he did give up, well,
5 loaves of bread, 2
right,
fish.
right.
And that
That
was
was a concept.
And but he gave that to the multitude.
and Virgo. And Virgo. Because the bread is Virgo.
Oh, okay.
So, but they're opposites. So he's
That's
one
that one
line.
line.
Right.
And my man only
Wow.
ate bread and water.
Service.
He only ate bread and water. The
Who?
one time.
Who? Yeshua?
Yeah.
I don't even know where that is.
So called when he returned up in the upper room, and they was like feed me, I'm physical, feed me.
In the
When
circle 7, when he fasts for 40 days and 40 nights.
Right.
So I guess that indicates he must have been munching on something.
Right.
Well,
But
we
it was
don't-
his bread and fig trees.
Well, listen, no, you're talking about John the Baptist, and he didn't even eat bread. He ate like figs and leaves and twigs,
Right,
and
right,
nuts and berries and
right.
honey and carrot.
Nature.
Nature, right? Okay, so
My
he
man had
wasn't
a
a breatharian,
He had a trail mix.
but he was like a true vegetarian, where he just ate vegetation. Okay, but I'm saying Yeshua, I don't know what he was eating because he never
Right,
read it.
right.
But they said he fasted for 40 days and 40 nights. The angel came and said, or not the angel, the lower self came and said that if you know, this is my favorite chapter, so now I'm just going to go through it real quick. This is my favorite.
Son, right?
Well, no, he said he tempted him 3 times.
Oh, yeah.
One of the times he said, just change.
See,
Here it
that's
is.
Revelation.
Right.
No.
No.
Hold on. It's in the circle
Matt?
7, chapter 15. Jesus goes to the wilderness for self-examination, where he remains 40 days, is subjected to 3 temptations. He overcomes, returns to the camps of John, and begins teaching. The harbinger had paved the way. That was John the Baptist. The Logos had been introduced to men as love made manifest, and he must now begin his divine ministry. And he went forth into the wilderness to be alone with Allah. That doesn't have to be physical wilderness. That could, although that what it's referring to is you're going into a place that's been untapped. It's because wilderness is untouched.
Right. That's
Okay.
right.
That he might look into his inner heart and note its strength and worthiness, into his inner heart, into his pineal, into his the deepest he can go.
Right.
But that reads to me is Pluto. He went as deep as he could go. Pluto is deep, deep emotions. And he said, and with himself he talked. He said, my lower self is strong. By many ties I am bound down to carnal life. Have I the strength to overcome and give my life a willing sacrifice for men? When I shall stand before the face of men, and they demand a proof of my messiahship, what will I say? So here we are, alone in a room, or alone in nature, or wherever you are alone, and you're really digging deep into yourself, and you're analyzing your fears, and you're going face to face with them. Can I do whatever I was brought here to do? And the tempter came right after he questioned himself. So that was a key to me as well. Like when you question yourself, when you doubt yourself, you open in the door. Thought. It's all the power of thought. I think I can't do it, so you open the door for someone, for an energy to continue that.
Right.
Oh yeah, no, you can't do it. So listen to what the tempter says. If you be son of Allah, command these stones to turn to bread. And Jesus said, who is it that demands a test? It is no sign that one is son of Allah because he does a miracle. The devils can do mighty things. So he didn't, they were trying to get him to change it into bread.
Right,
But
right.
he denied it. And later on in the chapter, it says that he wrestled with his carnal self for 40 days, and that after that, his higher self prevailed. He was hungry, but his friends had found him, and they ministered to him. So what did he eat?
If they ministered to him. Wow.
What did he eat?
Really?
He ate the knowledge.
Right.
He was hungry, so they ministered to him.
And that's what I'm saying. When that took me right there. Ministered to him.
And then the other part that I wanted to point out in this chapter is that this kind of goes back to some things we have been talking about with with the dirty Moors and people who are putting out the misinformation. This what Prophet is amazing. He said, and Jesus said, who is it that demands a test? It is no sign that one is son of Allah because he does a miracle. The devils can do mighty things. So just because you were able, your paperwork was able to get somebody out of jail, that doesn't mean that it's right.
Right.
That doesn't mean it's coming from a divine place.
Right.
Or coming from the right side nationally. I mean, this thing is amazing. He laid it all out for us. But just to close, I was talking about chapter 1. That's where I was before I went down to the chapter about Yeshua. And in chapter 1, what I was trying to get at is that, I'm just trying to go back up to it. In chapter 1, okay, so I have read, man is the Lord of all planes of manifests, right? Prior to that, it states, perfected man must pass through all the ways of life, and so a carnal flesh would full manifest a nature that sprang forth from fleshy things. Without a foe, a soldier never knows his strength, and thought must be developed by the exercise of strength. Thought must be developed by the exercise of strength. So all these challenges that we're facing, all these tribulations, that we're on earth just for that purpose. Earth is like your jail. And we're going through the tribulations, but it's like when you locked up, what you doing? I ain't never been locked up. I mean, y'all probably ain't never been locked up. Y'all might not. So, you might not know. But what do we see? What do we hear? What do people look like when they get out sometimes? Right.
Yeah, like they've been studying and even change religion and start reading more.
They're getting stronger.
Right.
That's what we need to do. We have to get stronger, but personally. So we need to be meditating so that we can clear our minds and hear the right verbiage. We need to be studying etymology so we comprehend the meaning of these words and apply them properly. I didn't even get to the metaphysics of language, but think about this. If I say, I want to regulate my life in a better manner, that literally means I want to straighten out my life. You have to close your eyes and visualize yourself on a path and walking straight down that path. So when you visualize that, that's more energy you bring to being able to do that in the physical sense too. So we talked about language, we talked about how to learn, we talked about true religion. I mean, all these are aspects of Moorish science, and we didn't even touch on writing any writs or affidavits today. You get what I'm saying?
Get into all that too.
But no, it's okay. It's okay. I did that purposefully because I want people to comprehend that this is Moorish science equally, and you can't just be on one side, or else nothing's gonna work. Islam.
Well, I just wanted to run off right fast.
Sorry,
No,
I
you good.
took up.
Come on, sis. Come on.
That's what you get for letting me go first.
All right. Well, I was digging into the bag of goodies and found another book called Civics. It's called Civics, and it's another Harvard classic coming from Harvard. Now these books come from Harvard, man, I tell you. But I'm gonna just do the introduction. Alright. And in the introductory note, and we're gonna finish this up next week, Miguel de Cervantes Saavedra was born at Alcalá de Henares in Spain in 1547. You pay attention to that too. Of a noble Castilian family. Nothing is certainly known of his education, but by the age of 23, we find him serving in the army as a private soldier. He was maimed for life at the Battle of Lepanto, shared in a number of other engagements, and was taken captive by the Moors on his way home in 1575. So if we pay attention to the 1575, in Spain, right? This is in Spain, and the fall of the Moors was when? 1492. So that tells us that we still have power going on. So we were not completely taken out of our power. And this is a good book to get into. And also, my brother here, Loon Bay, want to get it catching right fast. You know, he dedicated it. We can't wait shutting down now. Thank you. This is a book that he got off the University R.V. Bay Publications by the good sister Anaidah, and we'll be getting into this next week. And that's all I basically have to say. We're waiting for the sister to close us out. All right. You can take us on out, sis.
Allah.
Allah.
Bind our hearts and minds.
Bind our hearts and minds.
Back to our ancient forefathers.
Back to our ancient forefathers.
Divine creed and history.
Divine creed and history.
This we ask.
This we ask.
In His holy name.
In His holy name.
In the seven Elohims.
In the seven Elohims. Islam.
Amen.
All right, that's really good. See y'all next week.
Islam. It's actually Elohim.